Which games should you bet week 1 of the NFL season? Welcome, football fans and gridiron gamblers. That's right, I'm back to give you my 5 favorite spread picks of week 1. I know it's July, it's early, but I'm trying to help you get the best of the number. I'm trying to help you pick some winners in week 1. Start the season hot. So if that sounds good, Gronk, spike the like button, don't be a jabroni, and subscribe to the BLV for more gambling content all 2025 NFL season. Let me know in the comments your best bet for week 1. And let's get to it with my 5 favorite spread picks. Let's begin with a dog. There's no better place than to begin with a division dog. And that is the New York Giants getting a full touchdown and an extra point +7 at the Washington Commanders. There could not be 2 teams with so far separate expectations. There could not be 2 teams that contrast so heavily in hype. The Washington Commanders are viewed after a miracle NFC Championship berth as a team on the rise. They have, for many, the number 1 young quarterback in the NFL and in the NFC. Meanwhile, everybody thinks the Giants will suck this year. Pretty much everybody thinks that Russell Wilson is washed. And pretty much everybody believes that Brian Daboll is going to be fired. But one thing I'll say about this matchup, they're familiar. Last year, the Giants only lost by 5 points and 3 points in both matchups. The Commanders played consistent 1-score games. And I don't think the Giants are really, truly that much less talented than the Commanders. I actually think the Giants could pull off an upset in this game. I know that's insane to say. It's crazy. It's wild. Not a lot of people see the Giants coming this year. A lot of people expect big things from the Commanders. But I expect regression from the Commanders. And I look at the Giants, and I actually see a pretty underrated roster with many improvements, specifically defensively and at quarterback. So, referring to last season, both teams played, of course, twice, divisional football. Both games were decided by 5 or less. The first matchup was decided by 3, and the second game was decided by 5. In the second game, which was played in November, the Giants actually had more time of possession and more first downs. The Giants, last year, with their quarterback play, still capable of moving the ball on the Commanders. That's a scary thought. Now, no matter what you think of Russell Wilson, he's a little bit better than, in my opinion, Daniel Jones, than, in my opinion, Drew Lock, or even the Italian Stallion, right? So I do believe that Russell Wilson can make some explosive plays, can protect the football, and can keep this game close. Russell Wilson, if he's good at anything, is good at explosives and is good at protecting the ball. Even last year. Last season, Russ actually played the Commanders. He threw 3 touchdowns. 3 moon balls for scores. Russell Wilson against the Commanders, who play a lot of man coverage, is going to hit some big plays. He has guys like Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, right? These guys can get down the field, they can fly, and they can make plays. Not only that, but Wan'Dale Robinson, Theo Johnson, some underrated inside playmakers to move the chains, and Tyrone Tracy I'm a fan of in the backfield. I think Brian Daboll, with a lack of Commander pass rush, remember, this is a team that they lost Jonathan Allen, they lost Dante Fowler. They do not have a certified baller up front. Daron Payne's a good player, but he's more of a run defender than he is a pass rusher. The Commanders do not have a guy that is like 8+ sack capable. They don't. I mean, Dorrance Armstrong is their best edge rusher. Andrew Thomas should be back and healthy at left tackle, which will definitely help the Giants offensively. And I just don't see how the Commanders are going to consistently rush for and get to the quarterback, which is going to lead to more blitzes from the Commanders this season. And what that also leads to is Russell Wilson making some big plays, throwing the ball down the field, or isolation matchups for a player like Malik Neighbors. That's difficult because I don't think the Commanders can cover him one-on-one. We saw that last season. So I think the Giants will actually sneakily be able to move the ball and keep this one competitive and even have some time of possession and keep the ball away from Jaden Daniels. I trust Brian Daboll to be smart enough of a coach to manage the game from the time of possession vantage point, okay? So you have that side of the ball where I actually think the Giants match up pretty well because Russ typically plays well against man coverage, and I think he'll hit some explosives. On the other side, I really like the Giants front seven. They have maybe the best pass rush in the entire NFL entering the year. I mean, first of all, Dexter Lawrence is probably the best nose tackle in the NFL, a complete monster. They drafted Abdul Carter, who's a freak show, in the top 3 picks of the NFL draft. He is quick enough, fast enough, and ferocious enough to track down Jaden Daniels, which is a difficult thing to do. Not a lot of edge rushers can do that, but Carter is capable. He is a freak. They also have Brian Burns, who's one of the more slippery, quick, and agile edge rushers in football as well. And they've got Kayvon Thibodeau. Like, this is a really good pass rush. It's going to provide problems for the Commanders. An offensive line that should be improved this year, but will have some different looks in terms of their week 1 unit. Like, Sam Cosmi did get hurt late last season. I wonder if he'll be able to start in week 1. That's a question mark. He was their best interior lineman last year. They might have a rookie starting at right tackle or guard, depending on if they want to play Connerly, their first-round pick. And then also Laramie Tunzel is going to be playing left tackle, who is a good player and should provide an upgrade for the team. But it might take some time, especially with him, with the communication, with all the false starts that he typically does see. So I feel like the Commanders are a good offense, and I feel like they're going to be good again. But with a full season to prepare for them, with a full season of tape of Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels, I do think that's going to help defenses. Now, maybe Cliff will have the counter punches necessary and ready, but I look at the Giants personnel up front to be able to give Daniels some problems in terms of their pass rush. I think they have the speed to track him down in the open field. And now when you look at the secondary, they actually have a capable secondary. Last year, they were atrocious, right? They had nobody to cover Terry McLaurin. But now they have a guy like Paulson Adebo, who is a sticky man coverage corner. And they also have Javon Holland, who's one of the best rangy free safeties to prevent the big play over the top. So with their combination of speed in the front seven and coverage in the back end, the Giants actually have the capability of slowing down the Commanders a touch. So I think this game will be close. I could even see the Giants winning this game. Maybe I'm crazy, but I could see it happening. I think the Commanders will take a step back because I just feel like their 4th down conversion rate won't be as good. I feel like their luck, their fortune, like these close game victories won't continuously repeat. There's just obvious things, especially the schedule that the Commanders will have to deal with this year compared to last year. The Commanders are probably going to regress as a team. I still would pick them to win this game, but given what happened last year between these two, given that this team, the Giants, has already seen Daniels twice, plus they have a full offseason to prepare with new tape and new ideas on how to slow him down, and a full offseason, I like the Giants to keep this competitive and close, especially with all the new improvements they've made on their roster. So give me the Giants +7 as my first pick in week 1. Now my second pick is going to be a favorite, the Pittsburgh Steelers, -3 at the New York Jets. I'm not quite sure why this is only 3 points. Aaron Rodgers is now officially the quarterback of the Steelers, and I'm officially betting this game. Rodgers will have a revenge game on his mind in week 1 at the Jets. Of course, if Rodgers knows any team better than any team in football, it's going to be the Jets. He's going to know the personnel. He's going to know the defense. He's going to know a lot about the players, their corners, about their offense, whatever it may be, okay? So having that on your side is also extremely helpful for the preparation of this team. Having a guy like Aaron Rodgers with his mind and his brain of football to be able to help the coaching staff is definitely going to help. But then you also throw in the fact that it's Justin Fields, a guy that played for the Steelers last year, and maybe for some, that's a revenge game as well. But Mike Tomlin is going to know Justin Fields. The thing with the Jets is they don't have their old coaching staff. Like, this is a completely new coaching staff. This is Aaron Glenn, okay? This is basically a Detroit coaching staff. So they might have familiarity with Aaron Rodgers because they were in Detroit, but at the same time, it's not going to be that same level of he was in our building, we know what he likes, we know what he doesn't like, we know his limitations, we know what he's great at. With Justin Fields in Pittsburgh, Arthur Smith's going to know all of that stuff, right? On top of that, it's a mismatch coaching-wise. It's Mike Tomlin, one of the greatest coaches of this era, versus a rookie coach in Aaron Glenn, a rookie staff, versus two head coaches in Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin. Arthur Smith was a head coach with Atlanta. So it's a complete disadvantage for the Jets with the first ever week of preparation, their first ever game in the NFL. It's really hard for first-time coaches to win. We see that regularly, right? And then you also just throw in the fact that I think Aaron Rodgers is a little underrated, and I think Justin Fields is a little overrated. I would throw that in there as well. I think Rodgers, the way he performed last year, a little bit underrated. I feel like Justin Fields throughout his career, a little bit overrated. I think the Steelers, as a pass rush, they're going to give problems for the Jets. Jets have a young offensive line. Jets have some guys even coming back from injuries. But then also on top of that, the Steelers might have the best defensive line in the entire NFL. I know I just talked about the Giants, but PFF actually ranked the Steelers as the number one D-line in the NFL. That's led by TJ Watt, who should be back for this game, who should be signed for this game. They have Alex Highsmith. They have Cam Hayward. They drafted a first-round pick out of Oregon for their defensive line. So I feel like they're going to be able to get pressure on Justin Fields. I feel like they're going to be able to slow down Breece Hall in the running game. And I feel like Fields, if he does anything really, really poorly, it's the fact that he holds on to the ball. He holds on to the ball, he takes bad sacks, and he probably will give up a strip sack or two to TJ Watt, the master of forced fumbles. He led the NFL in forced fumbles last year. I could see TJ Watt with one or two in this game. So I don't like this matchup for the Jets at all. I don't like how they may or may not be able to move the ball. You also throw in the fact the Jets have very little at wide receiver. Like, they have Garrett Wilson and not a lot else. And you look at how the Steelers have improved their secondary, adding Jalen Ramsey. They have Joey Porter Jr. They have Darius Slay. Like, they're going to be a good cornerback group that could probably just play man coverage against this team. It's going to be difficult for the Jets to move the ball, which is going to buy time for Rodgers to be able to move the ball against a pretty stiff Jets defense. But the Jets are going to play Aaron Glenn's style, which is probably going to be a lot of man coverage, right? And it's going to be the first time adjusting from more of a zone cover 3-based system to more of a man coverage system. It's going to be the first game there where they're having to shift their perspective, shift their scheme. So the Jets are having to do a lot to be able to overcome this Steelers team with all their experience and all their veterans. The Steelers have a lot of experience on their team. So there's a lot of reasons to like the Steelers here. They're also 6-3-1 in their last 10 seasons in week 1. And their losses are against the Patriots twice and the 49ers in 2023, a team that went to the Super Bowl and nearly won the Super Bowl. So their 3 losses are against Tom Brady and Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. So that's a pretty good track record in week 1 as well, compared to the Jets with Justin Fields and Aaron Glenn. So I really like the Steelers here as a favorite. I think they should be favorites of like near 6 points. So 3 is just, it doesn't make sense to me at all. Next, the Arizona Cardinals are actually favored by 6. Depending on where you look, it might be 5.5. Obviously, 5.5 is a much better number than 6. But I'd still lay 6 at New Orleans. I think that the Saints will be the worst team in the NFL this year. And I think the Cardinals are going to be one of the more underrated teams in the NFL this year. I think they might even make the playoffs. Okay, first of all, when we're talking about week 1 and Kyler Murray, the last 2 week 1s, Kyler Murray has faced Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be a little bit different facing Tyler Shuck and the New Orleans Saints. So this is a game that was gifted to the Cardinals as a victory in week 1 after facing two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, two of the best teams in the NFL. And actually, if you remember that Buffalo game, they were ahead early, and a lot of people thought they would win, but it was just a storming comeback by Josh Allen. So they actually performed well in week 1 last year, I would say. But before that, the Bills and the Chiefs, the Cardinals did win the previous 2 games over the Niners and the Titans, 2 pretty good teams. The Niners were coming off a Super Bowl appearance in 2019. That was 2020 that they won that game. And then the Tennessee Titans under Mike Vrabel were a good team as well. And the Kyler went off in that game, and I think the Cardinals crushed them. So, yeah, I think the Cardinals will be prepared here. I think a lot better than they have been in previous years because Jonathan Gannon is now going to be in, year 3 as a coach. This is going to be a more settled staff. Kyler Murray is actually going to be probably more confident because he's going to have a full offseason instead of having to recoup from injury. He's going to actually be fresh, locked and loaded, and actually probably more explosive as a player. And the Saints on their side have a lot of new. They have a new rookie quarterback expected to start in Tyler Shuck. They have a new rookie head coach in Kellen Moore. Numerous new coaches on the staff, including their defensive coordinator. So there's a lot of new. The offensive line, their left tackle probably is going to be a rookie in Kelvin Banks facing off against probably Josh Sweat. That's a difficult matchup after Josh Sweat was just awarded a contract by the Cardinals. And the Cardinals have a new and improved pass rush, right? They have a new and improved pass rush. They have a first-round pick in Walter Nolan, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, 2 veterans, Josh Sweat, and then the guys they had last year. So whether that be Zaven Collins, whether that be their first-round pick from last season, the Cardinals are going to have a much improved front 7, a much improved pass rush, and that's going to provide the Saints with their new-look offensive line, with their rookie quarterback, a lot of problems, you would think, okay? The Cardinals also have a very good safety tandem, so I feel like they'll be okay when it comes to covering the middle of the field. And Gannon has been very creative in his schemes, and I feel like against a rookie, it's going to be difficult for that rookie to dice them up or get a beat on what they're doing. Gannon always has been very good in Arizona with his sub packages and his disguises. I think that's something that's going to throw off Tyler Shuck quite a bit. And then you look at the other side of the ball, the Saints might have the least talented cornerback group in the NFL, and they're facing off against Marvin Harrison Jr., who's expected to have a huge breakout season this year. I could see him starting off really hot here. Trey McBride's also a huge problem for a team with older, slower safeties. And their defense overall was not very good last year. They lost Dennis Allen, who's one of the better defensive minds in football. And they were 31st in rushing yards and yards per attempt allowed last year. The Cardinals were a top 3 rushing offense in the NFL last year. I believe they were second. So the Cardinals are going to be able to run the ball, stay balanced, have time of possession. That's going to lead to Kyler Murray being able to keep the ball and run himself, or being able to find matchups to Trey McBride or Marvin Harrison Jr. I just think this is a complete mismatch. I think the Cardinals' new and improved defense is going to give Tyler Shuck a lot of problems. Kellen Moore will be over his head in his first game. It's just going to be difficult for him. I mean, it's not his fault. And then the Cardinals just have a much improved defense, actually underrated offense. They were a top 10 offense last year. So I like the Cardinals here. -6, -6.5. I'd probably take it up to 7.5, to be honest. But if you can find it at 5.5, that's absolutely ideal. Cardinals lay the points. The fourth game is the Denver Broncos. Also, I want to lay the points with Denver -7.5 at home against the Tennessee Titans. This is a similar situation that I've been feeding on in this video. Steelers facing an inexperienced staff with the Jets, okay? Cardinals facing an inexperienced staff and quarterback of the Saints. The Broncos facing an inexperienced quarterback of the Titans with a pretty poor staff in Tennessee. And it's also a major mismatch coaching-wise. It's Sean Payton versus Brian Callahan, okay? Brian Callahan is arguably the worst head coach in the NFL. Sean Payton is arguably a top 3 coach in the NFL. Cam Ward, who I like, very talented kid, is going to be playing in his first ever NFL game. And imagine what he has to face. He has to face the Denver Broncos, who made the playoffs last year, were a top 3 defense in the NFL last year, who many people think will actually be the best defense in football. I saw that Mina Kimes ranked them as their, the number 1 defense in the NFL. In my opinion, I think they're a top 3 defense in the NFL. So I'm not too far off, okay? They have the best corner in football in Pat Surtain, who can shadow and take Calvin Ridley out of the game. Tennessee has the most shallow receiving core in the NFL. Their number 2 receiver is old Tyler Lockett. The Broncos have a nasty pass rush led by Zach Allen and Nick Bonito, and they're going to be facing a rookie quarterback behind a new offensive line with a new left tackle, a new right guard, and just new continuity, okay? The Broncos were very good against the run. I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to run the ball against DJ Jones, against John Franklin Myers, and against the new Dre Greenlaw in the middle of this defense. The Broncos, they typically are very good in week 1 with the mile-high advantage because of the altitude and because they're conditioned for that atmosphere. They're conditioned for that weather. They're conditioned for that altitude, right? They're going to have the inherent advantage in stamina, okay? But they have not been very good in week 1 in recent memory, okay? They have not been. But that more so, in my opinion, has to do with how bad their teams have been and not necessarily how their team is now, because they have probably the best roster and the best team they've had in like 6-7 years. It's probably the best roster the Broncos have had since Peyton Manning played on this team. And Bo Nix is expected to take a step up in year 2. Their offense only got a bit better this offseason. Evan Ingram added to the group at tight end of playmakers. Tennessee has a very poor edge rush. They have no real edge rusher that you're expecting to get 7 sacks in an NFL season. In fact, they lost their best one in Harold Landry. They have a good interior defensive line, but the Broncos have a top 5 offensive line in football. They have Sean Payton, who's going to scheme up short pass after screen. And Tennessee really struggled with teams like the Commanders last year to be able to tackle and move in space at linebacker. They have very weak linebackers, and they're just very poor against spread offenses. I think Bo is going to go crazy here, and I think the Broncos are going to absolutely terrorize Tennessee. I think the Titans will struggle on offense. I think the Broncos will find their footing. They'll have long possessions, and they'll be able to rack up points, and I just don't see Tennessee getting anywhere close. I think Denver wins by 14 points, 17 points. This could be like a 34-17 type game, 31-14. I think it's going to be pretty ugly. And it's a big number for a reason. I don't see many positives for Tennessee. I would maybe look at dogs inherently in week 1, but Tennessee might be the worst team in the AFC from a talent perspective. I really like Cam Ward, and I think they did improve their offensive line, but that's going to take some time. Their weapons are not very good. Their defense is not very good. Their coaching staff is not very good. Meanwhile, Denver has an improving offense. They have a dominant defense, and they have one of the best combination of coaches in football with Sean Payton and Vance Joseph. So I think Denver is going to dominate the Titans. And then our 5th pick is more of like a value play, I would say. That's the Detroit Lions getting points at the Green Bay Packers in week 1. This is just a surprising number to me. I don't correlate with this. The Detroit Lions getting 1.5 at Green Bay. I'd basically just take the money line here. But I don't understand this one, mostly because Detroit has defeated Green Bay 6 of the last 7 games. 6 out of the last 7 matchups, the Lions have beat the Packers. So Dan Campbell and his staff and his team and Jared Goff have owned Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love, period. Even with Aaron Rodgers, right? The Lions won those games. Now, the big thing that I really like about Detroit is I have questions about them in terms of Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, the 5, 6, 7 coaches they lost this offseason. But one similarity I could bring up is, remember the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles after the 2022 Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs? And they lost 2 coaches. Remember that? When they lost their coordinators? Shane Steichen, and they lost Gannon, who we talked about previously, to the Cardinals. That team started off like 9-10-0, but then they fell apart down the stretch. Sometimes it takes teams to be able to learn the new coordinator's tendencies before the true loss of losing a brilliant play caller actually takes shape. Sometimes it takes some time. So I actually could see where the Lions aren't as affected without Ben Johnson early in the year because they have so much talent. Now, they obviously lost Frank Ragnow. That hurts. But I believe in the Lions and their offensive line. They still have great tackles. They still have good guards. And I think they'll be able to overcome that. I don't think they're going to be the best offensive line in football, but I still think they're going to be top 7, top 5. I still think they'll be in that categorization, in that territory, okay? Green Bay did not have a very good pass rush last year. They were one of the 5 worst in terms of pass rush win rate. Their secondary cannot play man coverage. They lost Jair Alexander, and they're very predictable in their zone approaches. They're very soft, and they often don't blitz, really. I mean, they send 4, and they play zone. Jared Goff is a smart quarterback who is going to be able to go with the ball where he wants. If the Packers want to match up and play man, they're in a world of trouble because Amon-Ra and Jamison Williams are going to torch them all day because they do not have the corners to play that style of coverage. Okay? The Packers, I felt like, were a defense that gave up a ton of success. Like, if you look at their success rate allowed in the passing game, they were bottom 5. But EPA-wise, they were actually pretty good because they feasted on big plays and turnovers. The Lions, because of their ability to steadily move the ball on the ground, they're also keeping themselves out of bad down and distance, which inherently keeps you away from turnovers. So I don't think Jared Goff's going to be putting the ball up for grabs to Xavier McKinney too much. Maybe once, but that's about it, okay? So I look at the Lions to be able to steadily move the ball. The Packers are pretty good against the run. They were last year. But the Lions are pretty much unstoppable as a running team overall over the last couple of seasons. They feature one of the most dynamic players in the NFL in Jahmyr Gibbs, a good power back in David Montgomery, and even in a game in Green Bay last year where it was not the Lions' weather, right? It was raining, it was windy. The Lions still were able to win that game pretty comfortably and confidently. So I think the Lions will be able to move the ball. But on the other side, where I'm sold that the Lions can win this game outright, and they might not dominate and win by multiple scores. I think they could win by a field goal, but that's still an upset, and that's still a win for us, right? They could win by 7. That would be very much in the cards. But when you look at the other side of the ball, right, I really respect Matt LaFleur as a play caller. I love their running game. I think Josh Jacobs is awesome. And we'll see what Matthew Golden can bring. I am lower on Jordan Love than others. I think Jordan Love's a bit overrated. But what I do like is that the Lions defense is going to be a lot healthier than they were late last season, when they last played, when the Lions won 34-31 in Detroit, okay? And I think that was like a last-second surge by the Packers, if I remember correctly. But the Lions, they're going to have Aiden Hutchinson, okay? And even without McNeil, they did draft the first-round defensive tackle who's made to stop the run. So that should help them with their beef up front to slow down Josh Jacobs. And then they do have very good linebackers. They do have DJ Reed, who replaces Carlton Davis, who may or may not even played in that Packers game. He might have been hurt at that point. I can't quite remember or recall. But they're going to have all their secondary guys. They're going to have all their starting corners. They're going to have their safeties, Brian Branch, Joseph, one of the best combos in football. And what the Lions did last year and have done under Aaron Glenn, and it's going to be interesting to see if they continue this, they played a lot of man coverage. And that's actually something that the Packers struggle with. That's what Jordan Love struggles with, because the receiving core is not very good at separating from man coverage. Without Christian Watson, who's very unlikely to play, the Packers basically have no man-to-man beaters. They're going to be really relying on a first-round rookie to step up right away, right? That's difficult for Matthew Golden to do, who is not seen as an elite prospect. That's going to be really difficult. Now, why do I bring up Christian Watson? He's probably going to be out because I think he tore his ACL late last season. He's probably not going to return till mid-season. Christian Watson has been the man-to-man coverage beater, okay, for the Packers. When you look at Jordan Love, he ranked 4th in EPA per dropback against zone coverage, but against man coverage, he was 33rd, okay? And Christian Watson actually was top 5 in yards per route run with over 3 yards per route run against man coverage. The other receivers on the Packers, the next best is Romeo Doubs, who's about 1.7, okay? Everyone else, Reed is significantly worse against zone. Wicks is consistently worse against zone. all their playmakers struggle to separate because they're not very explosive, or just their routes don't create separation. So I look at this team. I think Detroit is still the more talented team. I still trust Dan Campbell, especially if he's an underdog, to motivate his team to win this game. You know what the message is going to be. It's going to be no one believes in us anymore because we lost Ragnow and we lost Ben and we lost Glenn, and nobody thinks we're going to be as good as we were last year, but we're going to go out there and we're going to beat the Packers again. The Lions are going to be dogs, which is a great place to be, right? That's when they're aggressive. That's when they're angry. That's when they're pissed off. And the Packers, I think they're a little bit overrated in terms of their talent on both sides of the ball. I think without Christian Watson, they'll struggle to separate from man coverage. And I think that I like the Lions. So I'll take them plus the 1.5 as my final pick. And those will be my early 5 spread picks of week 1 of the 2025 NFL season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, Gronk spike the like button. Don't be a jabroni and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my selections. It's Mitch. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.